And you're watching live pictures of the procession of the Queen's coffin that just arrived Windsor. The royal has arrived at about 3:06 p.m. As stated earlier, that it will arrive at 3:06 p.m. We've seen the pomp and pageantry in respect to the Queen since her passing. It shows how much she's loved and how much she's respected. But this hearse arrived at 3:06 p.m. and is making its way to the castle via the Long Walk Avenue. Again, with flight stopped, and that's because the castle is on the flight path into and out of Heathrow. The king and senior members of the royal family would join the procession on foot. They had gone by vehicle to Windsor, but now they would join by foot from the quadrangle at Windsor Castle, and around 3:40 p.m. before the cortege halts at the chapel at 3:53 p.m. Now, just after this, there is a committal service that will be televised at 4 p.m. The service is expected to be attended by at least 800 people. Now, most of them would have been at the Abbey, but it will also include past and present staff members who worked for the Queen. All right, let's bring in our guest. We have a former mayoral candidate joining us from the UK, Nims Obunge. He joins us via Zoom. We also have a royal commentator, Isha Pax-JOEL. He joins us from our Abuja studio to discuss this moment in history. Good to have you both. Nims, let me start with you. Speak to the significance of all that we've seen today. You live in the UK. You have met the Queen. How significant is all that we've seen today?
I think that this funeral is just absolutely representative of the heart and the grief that this nation feels in relation to the 70 years of dedication and service that we have received from Her Majesty the Queen. Last night I joined mourners to spend about 9 to 10 hours on the queue to go and look, to stand and pay my respect at Westminster Hall. And whilst there was a sense of community, the grief was palpable. And having been to Westminster Hall and come out, I saw hundreds and hundreds of people who had camped outside Westminster, who were going to be there all till this morning to see their Queen, and who wanted to just say thank you for all that you have done over the years. And I believe that all over the UK, all over the realms, the 14 nations that she's head of state, and all over the world, we find that the world recognizes that there was somebody that lived a phenomenal life, who gave the best of herself. She made a dedication at the age of 25 that she would commit to serve the people of the United Kingdom and everybody within the realms that she had the right to express her monarchy or her reign over. And we also found out that she made a commitment to God. She was consecrated in the same church where she got buried, the same church she got married, and she kept true to her commitment to God. So yes, today we find the nation is united in grief, but also in celebration of an amazing woman, one that we may never see the like of again.
And I will get to the issues of our faith with you. I know you are a reverend, but let me just ask you, because you talked about being on that queue to pay your respect to the Queen. How was that experience for you, especially the 1 minute or 2 minutes that you get to pay your respect at the Westminster Hall?
It was worth the 10 hours, 9 to 10 hours on the queue. It was, there were, I think when I stood in front of her coffin, I had my cap, my hat, which I held in my hand. And one of the clear things I thought about was all the different encounters, the numerous encounters, or the few encounters I had with her, other members of the royal family. And I felt a sense of gratitude and privilege that we had such an amazing person, and that I had the privilege of working for her, because I think the other thing that I am is I'm a deputy lieutenant to the Lord Lieutenant to Her Majesty for Greater London. So having that opportunity to serve her in that way as a deputy lieutenant, and our responsibility is to uphold the dignity of the crown. So that absolutely was a privilege.
And let me take the conversation to Aisha, because, you know, we were speaking with a guest earlier during the funeral service. And one of the things he said, you know, is the fact that, yes, it looks like the Queen is all that we've ever known. And to have a king sort of seems different, because we've known a queen for 70 years. But the monarch has always been about kings. And so it is really not something different. But how do you think that the reign of the Queen for 70 years altered the monarchy and the way the world sees it? The question is for you, Aisha. All right, I think we're having challenges there with Aisha, but I'll just take the question back to Nims. How do you think exactly that just having a queen for 70 years, when you've had a lot of kings, how did that change the monarchy and how the world sees it and relates with it?
It's interesting you say that. It's like folks have said the Elizabethan era is over, but what she did do was she had nobody to mentor her. She was not prepared to be queen at the time she was queen. We remember she was in Kenya at the time when she heard about the passing of her father. And moreover, her father was not even meant to be king. It was the abdication of his brother that made her father king. And what Elizabeth did, the Queen Elizabeth II did, what Her Majesty did was something amazing. She, even as a young lady, would be in Windsor Castle where she's going to be laid, and she made a broadcast to children at a very young age in the times of the Second World War. She demonstrated leadership from the early stages of her life. And when she did become queen at age 25, she made it clear that you needed to be seen to be believed. That was one of her key statements. And so she decided to travel around the Commonwealth. She decided to travel around the UK and make herself seen. And it's said by a lot of journalists, one of the things she did was she made sure she wore bright colors so that people would recognize that she was who she was. But then here was the interesting thing. She had her red box that she would have to go through every single morning, had meetings every 20 minutes with different leaders and different people. And having met 14 American presidents and put in place and welcomed 15 prime ministers and leaders from across the world, she demonstrated that she was a great leader. And then, you find that what she did for women was just show that women had a right to be at that table. Whilst the monarchy for years might have been, and there have been a few queens, but might have been mainly kings, she demonstrated that this was a time and age, not just for women in the place of being monarchs, but also all across our nation and in the Commonwealth. I think she was saying that it's the time for the women to take their place as leaders over nations.
Absolutely. And again, that was evident in terms of the lineup of those who gave the first lesson and second lesson. It was Liz Truss and the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. And so it was obvious that she really wanted women to lead. But let me take the conversation now back to Aisha, understand that we have a better connection. Aisha, I was asking you earlier what you thought having a woman lead for 70 years as against having kings, having a queen. what did that do for the monarchy in terms of how the rest of the world sees it?
Yes, in terms of what the world sees now, having a female monarch for 70 years, and now we're having a king, a male monarch, there's definitely going to be a difference because every sovereign has his own style or her own style. The rules will remain the same, proclamations will remain the same. Everything remains the same regarding administration, but everybody has, each monarch comes with their own style, their own mood, so to speak. So we definitely would see a difference between Queen Elizabeth and King Charles III. King Charles, I would say, has been the best apprentice for this job. He's had 70 years. I do think, though, he would be able to walk in his mother's footsteps, but his own style. Just remember that the monarchy itself is a figurehead. They're not supposed to meddle in politics, and so therefore, King Charles has been very vocal. I think you would see a pushback in that during his reign, because this is the essence of the monarchy, not to meddle in political affairs. There would certainly also be lots of physical changes immediately after the coronation, the money notes, the emblems, because now we have ER, even on the stamps, on the money, and then we're going to have maybe CR this time. So yes, there would be definitely a difference, because Prince Charles would have his own style, but things will remain the status quo regarding rules and proclamation.
Right. So I think Nims Obunge was speaking earlier, and I'm staying with you, Aisha. Nims Obunge was speaking earlier, and he talked about how she opened up the monarchy in terms of traveling and meeting with world leaders. But one of the things she did is the fact that she started to give this radio broadcast of her speech, and then televised events as well. And you know how they say women are vulnerable. She sort of used that vulnerability, during her reign. And I just wanted to ask if you think that opening up a bit to the rest of the world, how well did that work, and what did that do for the monarchy?
I think it did remarkably well for the monarchy. I think it did so. Her being female made a big difference. Yes, as you said, it put her in a very vulnerable position. She was able to use that when necessary. I think also the fact that she devoted her life, as Pastor Nims had said, at the age of, I believe it was 21 in Cape Town, where she said, I devote my life to you, to serve. So this her sense of lifelong service was the core of Queen Elizabeth's reign. And this actually was the remarkable difference in Queen Elizabeth. King Charles has also proclaimed the same in his inaugural speech after his mom's death. So we're looking forward to seeing how he would follow in her footsteps.
Nims, I just also wanted to speak to that vulnerability. Opening up in terms of speeches that were broadcast both on radio and sometimes on television as the monarchy evolved. What did that mean for the monarchy?
It meant evolution, really, because in the past, the monarchy was seen very much behind the scenes. There was this magic behind the monarchy, because you couldn't just see them as everyday people. But the Queen was able to break that by, allowing television to come in. Mind you, her coronation in 1953 was the first televised coronation, so she'd always been breaking the mold. And I think the vulnerability that she wanted to show was to be able to connect to the people. This is what Queen Elizabeth was all about. This is the core of Queen Elizabeth. She wanted to serve the people. She devoted her life. It was duty first. And so this is why she said, I let the televisions come in, and it was very, very, I think it was more like modernization of the monarchy. I think she started it. She's pioneered that.
So wanted Nims to respond to that. Nims, just respond to that vulnerability, and then how, because I know that you are the Reverend of Freedom Act in the UK, so faith means a lot to you as well. And what role that faith played in the life of the Queen? She was, I mean, she's a defender of the faith, as it were.
The Queen was never bashful about the fact that she was a Christian, but neither did she at any point in time during her reign. I hear you use the word vulnerability. I find it actually strength. I found that she exercised a lot of strength, but that strength was demonstrated in what people often refer to with the monarch as soft power. And that soft power does not necessarily mean that you are, because you're a constitutional monarch, which in reality means that you don't rule, but you reign. And so you don't take charge. You're also subject to the Constitution. But then intentions that exist in like even the not she did have the unfortunate killing by the RRA of her own uncle, Lord Baden, her relative. What we find her do is she actually goes and shakes hands with the IRA and calms a very volatile situation. But and you see her exercising that. I was listening to one of her undersecretaries for foreign affairs who would always brief her before she meets an ambassador or a royal ruler. And one thing she had is she had a great memory. And her memory, with that memory over the 70 years, she would always, oh, I knew that person's father. I knew what the ambassador said here. And so she used her ability to be well informed on world affairs to keep relationships across nations in a very, unique and robust way. And then when it came to her faith, every Christmas, she was never bashful of speaking about her faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. And I often say, since she's passed on, that the Queen has gone to her king, and I say that because she never ever denied her faith. As the defender of her faith, it was evident that her knowledge of the word and her reliance on God to guide her. And I remember that there were times the world evangelist Billy Graham would come into the country and go and visit and sit with her. And so, yes, there was a book that was dedicated to all the statements Her Majesty made in relation to her Christian faith, that was distributed all over the world. And so I think that the service today, you made reference to Baroness Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, who happens to be a very personal friend of mine. And she just sent a text this morning saying, let's keep in prayer, because we have a small group together. And so she, with her leading the Commonwealth, she met the Queen so many times. And I just know that these were, the Baroness is a woman of prayer and faith, as was our Queen. And just being able to hear the scriptures that were read, listening to the Archbishop of Canterbury and his message of faith, it captures the essence of what the Queen said. We will meet again, as many of believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. That was her faith, and it kept her throughout her reign.
You mentioned Billy Graham. She was quite taken by him and insisted on giving him audience to listen to him against popular opinion and advice from within the court as well. Aisha, while Nims was speaking, you were speaking earlier to to King Charles being a bit different. And while Nims was speaking, it also occurred to me that when it comes to the issue of faith, he's a bit different. He talks so much about other faiths. He's quite accepting of other faiths, which is fine. But do you think that in terms, generally, just whether in terms of faith or in terms of just how he leads, that King Charles is going to continue in the stead of his mother, if we're going to see something quite different from what we've known in the past years? Aisha, can you hear me? All right, so let me, Nims, you can take the question. Do you think that King Charles would necessarily, because it's quite open to other faiths, if he would necessarily follow his mother's footstep in terms of her faith and defending that faith?
Just a few days ago, King Charles III had a meeting with faith leaders, and he exercised his, he expressed his opinion around how important faith is to harness communities. And I have no dispute on that. As I sit within the Faith Council for His Majesty's, it used to be Her Majesty's, but His Majesty's Lieutenancy. And we host faith awards where we thank those who have used their faith to make a difference in Greater London. We celebrate them with the Lord Lieutenant, and I host the awards every year. And some of those who have been awarded have met with Her Majesty. We arranged for them to have garden parties with Her Majesty. And they were Christians, Hindus, Muslims, and people from different faiths. And I believe that Charles, having spoken with Charles, I know that there was this rhetoric about him saying that he wants to be the defender of the faiths. But in meetings we've had together, what Charles actually said, he said that was the mischief of the media, that he didn't actually say he wants to be the defender of the faiths, because he understands the office is the defender of the faith. But that said, he recognizes the importance of faith and how that is, as it were, a cohesive factor across society. And so I believe that we will still see, and Charles was quite clear in one of his speeches that he adheres to the faith of his parents, which is his Christian faith. The former Archbishop of Canterbury, who happened to have been a schoolmate of his, also spoke to this, that he's aware of Charles's faith. So we do stand in faith that he will not ever feel that he needs to discount or deny his faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, whilst also engaging and embracing the faith of all those that sit under the realm of his reign.
Let me go back to Aisha. Aisha, I don't know if you noticed, during the procession just before the funeral service, there was a procession through the Commonwealth Gate, and that was very significant because a lot of people were speaking to a professor earlier who said, now that the UK has left the European Union, it is now UK and the Commonwealth. And so Commonwealth seems to sort of step into that role. And then when you look at the years where the Queen was the head of the Commonwealth, how do you assess her leadership in terms of how the Commonwealth has evolved over the years? Aisha, can you hear me? Aisha, are you there? Can you hear me? I seem to be having this long delay in our conversation with Aisha, but I will just keep trying and then I will take the conversation back to Nims. I was asking Aisha about the issues around Commonwealth and how you assess the role that the Queen has played in terms of helping the Commonwealth evolve.
I believe that the Commonwealth is very dear to was very dear to Her Majesty and remains very dear to the royal family to King Charles III. And we have seen that even countries that were not part of the British colonial system or imperial system, and somebody alluded to the de-imperialization of Queen Elizabeth, how she would still engage with Commonwealth countries and ensure that whilst what she was doing was keeping very strong relationships, and these are trading relationships. Again, it's soft politics, but ensuring that there's relationships exist. We've got the Commonwealth Games, so and we've, as a matter of fact, I'm not sure whether you are aware, we also have a Commonwealth app that is it's even on my phone. You can put it. People can go into the Commonwealth, onto the Apple Store and get the Commonwealth app on their phone. And what it does, it just allows those within the Commonwealth, leaders within the Commonwealth, and those interested in the Commonwealth to learn so much about each other's nations and see how we can foster stronger relationships with fellow countries that are part of the Commonwealth. And that has been something that I know that the Secretary General, Baroness Patricia Scotland, has been working very closely with the Commonwealth leaders and with the royal family to ensure that at all costs, what we do is we build strong relationships. And yes, without a doubt, the UK has come out of the EU and we've got Brexit right there. But I don't want to assume that all of a sudden heightened Her Majesty's interest in the Commonwealth, because her interest was always there. And she always we always had the Commonwealth service here at Westminster Abbey. And there were so many other Commonwealth meetings, like the one that just happened in Kigali. So there has always been a passion from Her Majesty and members of the royal family to build the Commonwealth and to secure that family. And some people may no longer within the Commonwealth want her to be the head of state, as we've seen with Jamaica. But then what is still important is that this collective family stays together and builds upon opportunities.
And the role, she was the head of the Commonwealth, but that role doesn't come within, you don't inherit it. So it doesn't automatically go to the next person in the line of succession. But I understand that King Charles will also be stepping into that role as well. But how do you think the Commonwealth will fare under him when you look at some of the just agitations we've been seeing and hearing in the past few days of people who just want to outrightly abolish the whole idea of the Queen being the head of state, especially in places like I think it's Australia, and then Antigua and Barbuda?
I think that while there may be a desire in some places, I know different nations they're going to be having referendums on exploring that. It's not, I don't believe all the citizens of that nation are saying, we don't want to be part of it. But what we have is, I think it's important that every nation should ask the citizens through a proper political democratic process to say, do you still want it, and make those decisions by the parliament and government in situ. I think that it's also vital that what happens in the times when should such decisions be arrived at, the benefit of still belonging to the Commonwealth still exists without.
Yeah, what you said.
And I think that's what we must not miss out on. What one is not saying is that now King Charles III needs to be the head of state of all these nations. I think Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has already alluded to the fact that over the years things will change, and he's, and I think his experience when he went to the Caribbean made him much more rudely awakened to that reality. But then I think that the monarchy is recognizing of the fact that every nation state will make their own decisions, but they are happy to continue to use their soft politics to strengthen each other's relationship with the other. And I think that's where King Charles III would be thinking at the moment.
Who are members of the Commonwealth. For example, I know you're British, but I also know you're Nigerian. For example, a country like Nigeria, do you think that, because the Queen sort of, had a very different significance for the Commonwealth. I was speaking to earlier guest, and I said for the members of the Commonwealth, she seemed more like an ally, not necessarily because these countries had good relations with the UK, but they had the Queen in the UK as their ally, and so it was sort of a different era for them. And now that you have King Charles, that for these countries, do you think that these countries will look at him and see an ally, and so they stay? Or are we going to see just a little more agitations from this country, whether they stay or not, but just some kind of agitation?
It's interesting you said that. I think in order to demonstrate the importance of the Commonwealth, the very first leader of today's funeral service was the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland. I think that also what happened was King Charles ensured that he met with Commonwealth leaders and ambassadors following the death of his mama, as he would call her, the Queen. I think that I know in the past he's been a bit more vocal, like Isha alluded to, about certain things in politics and the likes. But I believe that so far, since he's become king, all the speeches he has made seems to be pointing in the same direction. He's trying to follow after the legacy of that his mother has laid. And I believe that it's important for him. He recognized that the sustainability of the monarchy is built upon the consensus that people give in relation to his office. And it is not imposed. This is not something that is imposed upon a nation. So I do believe Nigeria will have an ally. We had some Nigerian leaders who were there today. And I think that, and we have a Nigerian who, we thank God, is the Lord Lieutenant, now the King, a Nigerian British, Sir Kenneth Olisa. And so there is an ongoing relationship, and I happen to be one of the deputies, and I've been a deputy for many years. And so I think there will always be a desire from the monarchy to see how they exercise that relationship with the Commonwealth in a way that is palliative and beneficial for all concerned.
All right, I'm going to try and take this conversation back to Aisha to see if we have a better connection. Aisha, I just wanted to speak to how you think that the Commonwealth will evolve under the leadership of King Charles III.
Well, I think under the leadership of King Charles III, we may see a few more countries in the Commonwealth gain their independence. Obviously, there still will be member states. Prince Charles himself did say at the last head of state meeting with the Commonwealth, he did say there was no problem with that. If they wanted to go forward and gain their own independence, there will be no rancor. I do think under his reign, Prince Charles will try to follow in his mother's footsteps. I think she was a remarkable diplomat, and I think he would possibly take some examples from her, because as I always say, he's been an apprentice, he's had 70 years for this. I think he will be very, very excellent in following his mother's footsteps regarding the Commonwealth. Basically, the Commonwealth basically exists with the members for governance, to solve problems in governance, democracy, climate change, human rights issues. And I do think that it would evolve into what would be suitable for modernisation. Prince Charles himself, I don't think he would be, how would I put it? I don't think he would be in a position where he would not want to be open to modernising the situation and going forward. I mean, recently we are aware about some certain member states of the Commonwealth that want to go and have their own independence, and I think it will be fine.
Isha, I'm staying with you still. Two key issues here for the Commonwealth. There are those who say, look, who is the Commonwealth for exactly, and how much are these countries benefited compared to the UK or compared to Britain? And then number two, the Commonwealth is not a treaty organization, which means that most of the decisions that are made are not necessarily binding on the member countries. And I just wanted to speak to this, if how this will play out on the King Charles III.
Yes, most of the countries, it's not a legal binding situation here with the Commonwealth. It's just a committee of member states, more like a family coming together to solve issues. With King Charles, I do see him having a hands-on approach like his mother did. He's been to, for example, a number of these member states himself. And so, for me, that's an example to tell you that he would be very hands-on. To be honest, I also think that King Charles is, just to draw back again to what I said at the last head of state meetings of the Commonwealth, where he said he's quite open to any member of the Commonwealth. For those who still have the sovereign as their, you still have the realm of the sovereign, governing them as head of state. He has said that if they wanted to move on, for me, that is, that implies that he's quite open to whatever needs to be done to keep the Commonwealth as it is and to grow the Commonwealth.
So back to Nims. It is not just within the Commonwealth Nims that we're hearing about these agitations. We're also hearing these agitations are also coming within the UK itself. For example, when King Charles went to Wales, we saw the warmth and just how much they welcomed him. But there were also people who were protesting, saying, "Look, this is our money being spent. It is too much. How long are we going to continue to finance this kind of event?" And then those who were saying it is time for Wales to stand on its own as an independent nation. Scotland also is heading towards a referendum, both to leave whether to leave the UK and also to be independent from the monarchy. And these are issues, and one wonders whether these can be managed, properly managed under King Charles, like we've seen under the Queen.
I think that you'd always have dissident voices that exist, and there will be Republican voices that would say, obviously they're not royalists. They feel the time has come where, as all normal citizens, that we should all that the monarchy should be totally removed, and that has existed in the past. Scotland has had its referendum in the past, and it was evident that the people of Scotland made a decision that they still wanted to be part of the United Kingdom. And we have England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland that make the United Kingdom, and there will always be dissident voices. Now, the issue is not whether they're dissident voices. The issue is, do those dissident voices represent the majority of the people? From what we have seen in the last 11 days, the nations of the world really has come to, we've seen a mourning that, I don't think we'll see anywhere else in the world. Now, what does that mean for Charles? We recognize that what Charles did was he went around to all the four nations in order to ensure that it is important that the monarchy is seen to be apolitical. And that's so important. The Queen was apolitical, irrespective of your partisan persuasions. She maintained that position so that she would be seen as not one that was skewed to a political position. A historian said, history is yet to understand how in 70 years the monarch never ever let, she said a lot, yet she said nothing. You never really knew what she was thinking. You never knew her position, and people are hoping to get into her diary. With Charles, we know that in the past, he's been a bit, he's expressed some of his views on things like architecture and environment, but he's also recognized that as his place has evolved, and as Aisha rightly said, he's been tutored and being, should we say, mentored for all these 70 so years. I think he will take not just a page, but if not the whole book from the Queen, certainly significant chapters. I believe that what will happen is, in spite of the fact that there may be a number of distant voices, it will always remain the decision of the people. Not the decision of the king, but the decision of the people. And in Wales, they may choose to have a referendum. In Northern Ireland, they may choose. But I think that the way the nation is at this point in time, the United Kingdom is strongest when we are together. And I believe that will stay for quite a while, despite the voice.
But one thing that would not stay for quite a while, and I'm speaking to you, Aisha, is the fact that for a very long time, all you and I will see in the UK are king. Because after King Charles, we're going to have King Williams and then King George. We won't see the feminine touch to the monarchy for a really long time. How do you think this will play out and change the monarchy?
The monarchy, definitely, because, as I said, every sovereign has their own style. Queen Elizabeth, being a woman, had her own style, the way she did things and carried herself. So definitely having a male king now, and then his heirs male, it's going to change the course of the monarchy. Definitely, we're going to have possibly things done differently. For example, just to take simple things like even the clothes that the Queen would wear, and it would normally affect fashion. If she went for a banquet, a state banquet, and then you would see that whatever handbag she carried, and then you find that a lot of other designer stores are trying to imitate it, then you now have a king, so we're talking about something totally different. So I do think, however, this is history unfolding before our very eyes, so it will be interesting to watch and continue to see how all this evolves.
It's the fashion, absolutely. It's something that we've always looked forward to. What she's wearing, and the headband, the tiara, just all of that. It added color and beauty to the monarchy, and that will be missed for a really long time. Thank you so much for talking to us. Former mayoral candidate Nims Obunge, who joined us from the UK, and royal commentator Isha Pax-JOEL, who joined us from Abuja studio. Thanks to both of you. Interesting conversation.
Thank you very much.